Hey everyone, it's Brennan. Welcome to my channel and welcome to another video. Today we are wrapping up all the books that I read in May. I think I'm kind of finding my sweet spot in monthly reading. It's around like 10 books. In May, I read 11 books, which is awesome. If you're interested in the format, I read 2 physical books, 5 ebooks, and 4 audiobooks. One of those was a 3-star book, 5 were 4-star, and 5 were 5 stars. So another great reading month. So let's hope that sets the tone for the summer. I always go into the summer thinking that it's going to be my prime reading time, but last summer I didn't read very many books at all. I feel like I was kind of reading the wrong type of book. I was reading like a lot of heavy biographies, like Benjamin Franklin's biography and Thomas Jefferson's biography, and they just took a while to get through. I'll try not to make that mistake this summer. I don't want to say I'm feeling slumpy. I'm definitely slumpy with videos. I have like a few filmed, I just haven't wanted to edit, which now that makes sense because all semester I sat in front of my computer. So this summer is kind of my time to not sit in front of my computer, but I'll try to be better. I'm reading books. I'm reading lots of good books, but without further ado, let's get into those books. As usual, I will just go in the order that I read books for May. And the first book I read in May was a 5-star book, a new fave. It was Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. I read this in a collab video that I did with Kirsten from Kirsten's Corner. I'll link my video and Kirsten's video below, where she gave me some young adult suggestions and I gave her some new adult suggestions. Tweet Cute, what can I say? It was so good. Watch that video if you want more in-depth thoughts from me. But this is a young adult romance. We follow Pepper and Jack, and there is a grilled cheese drama between their families. Pepper's family has like a burger place that has kind of become, it's more commercialized and like all across the country. And Jack, his family, has a family deli, and they kind of get into a grilled cheese war. And Pepper and Jack go to the same school. Pepper's on the swim team, Jack's on the dive team. They just do like typical high schooler things. Their story was just so good, and there's a lot of food. I'm finding that if there are food descriptions in a book, I'm probably going to like it. But Pepper and her sister have this like crazy dessert vlog, so you get to see some of that. And Pepper's family has some weird dynamics that she's kind of dealing with, and Pepper and Jack are both dealing with where they want to go to college and what they even want to do with their lives. They're both seniors right now. Jack has developed this app kind of in secret, anonymously, that their school is using to anonymously text each other, and he and Pepper have been anonymously talking on that too. There's just a lot of good stuff going on in this book. Like I said, I gave it 5 stars, and thanks Kirsten for recommending me a new fave. The next book I finished in May was The Lesson by Cadwell Turnbull. This I read on audio, and this is actually, I've been finding a lot of great books in the Audible Plus catalog. So if you do have an Audible membership, they've started doing a thing where you can just pick titles from a catalog that they have, and they have some really good books on it. I'm going to talk about another one later, but this is a science fiction, and it has aliens in it, and it is set in the present day and also kind of the future, but not far into the future, like maybe 10-15 years into the future. It's also set in the Virgin Islands. I think it's like St. Martin or St. Thomas, one of the Virgin Islands, and aliens kind of invade, but they invade and live kind of alongside the humans. But this alien race is very aggressive, but they also have very much advanced technology. Like they can basically cure any illness. So they are helping us, like it's kind of like a symbiotic relationship, but also a lot of the humans kind of hate the aliens because the aliens have come and like killed some people. They have a name, this alien group, but I can't think of it. But they have killed some people on the island, and the families of those people have a lot of hard feelings because there's no like law enforcement within the aliens. They kind of have a ambassador, the aliens do, and she has an interesting history. She's kind of been on Earth before, so you get to see some of her past, like past like 1600s. Super interesting. There's a lot of like social commentary on colonialism in this, and it was really good. I gave this 4 stars. I don't read a lot of science fiction, but I enjoyed this one. The next book I have to talk about is Verity by Colleen Hoover. This was a super anticipated book for me because I love Colleen Hoover. This is a thriller romance, suspense romance, which is different from what she kind of usually writes a little bit. She just writes messy books. That's what I love to say. Colleen Hoover writes messy books. They keep me entertained. I read them so fast. I gave this 4 stars, like maybe even like 3.75, because Colleen Hoover is supposed to do my romance personally for me, and I just didn't love the romance in this. It was insta-love, and usually I can actually get behind some insta-love, especially how Colleen Hoover does it, and it started out promising, but it just kind of fell flat for me. Not that the romance had to be like the main plot point of this. I also have a vlog where I read this. It was my Thrills and Chills readathon vlog that I will link below. But this follows an author who is going to co-author a book series for Verity, who is a more famous author. And she was in a car accident, and it's kind of like TBI, like brain damaged, and she can't talk and like can't move, but she's still living at home. And then Lowen, our author we're seeing the perspective from, goes to their home to like go through her notes for the series, and she ends up staying for a while. And there's just some creepy, unsettling things around Verity. Lowen ends up finding an autobiography that Verity was writing, and it's super disturbing, like so messed up. And the ending is very like kind of, I don't want to really call it up for interpretation, but a smidge. It's a smidge up for interpretation. And I enjoyed this, but it was not my favorite from this author. The next book I read was 10 Blind Dates by Ashley Elston. I also read this in my collab with Kirsten. And this is another like young adult romance. It's called 10 Blind Dates. Obviously there's some romance, but we're following our main character, whose name is Sophia. I feel like honestly the beginning of May was so long ago, so I'm kind of proud of myself for remembering some of these names. Sophia is a high school senior, junior. She's like 17 or something, and it's Christmas time. This is like a Christmas time book, and her older sister is kind of like on bed rest, pregnant, has some preeclampsia going on. So their parents end up going to spend Christmas with her sister, but Sophia wants to stay because really she wants to hang out with her boyfriend. But very early on in the book they end up having some issues, so Sophia goes and stays with her very extended family. So many cousins, so many aunts and uncles, and they end up setting her on 10 blind dates. But her love interest is like a childhood friend, and that was not my favorite part in this book. I feel like the author just wanted us to accept that these characters had history, and that was supposed to kind of like create their chemistry, but I just didn't really feel that. But the dates were so funny, the family dynamics were so funny, there's lots of good food descriptions. These young adult books have amazing food descriptions. And Sophia's Nana, her grandmother who she's staying with, owns a plant nursery, so I really enjoyed that. 4 stars, solid read, really good. Thanks again, Kirsten. Let me school myself to talk about this next book. That is Zodiac Academy, Book 5, Cursed Fates by Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti. This is a Kindle Unlimited fantasy fae romance series that I have trouble talking about because it causes me a lot of emotional turmoil. This was the 5th book, and it actually took me a long time to read. Like, I started this in February, like towards the end of February. These are thick Kindle books though. This was probably like 700 pages. They are true fantasy books, and there's a lot of different characters. There's just so much going on, so many problems. I'll give you an overview of the series. We start out following our twins. Their names are Tori and Darcy. They're Geminis. They've grown up in the mortal world, but then they get told that they are actually the princess heiresses to this fae society that is based around like astrology, but also like they're called orders, and you could be like a vampire or a dragon or a werewolf or a Pegasus or a Nemean lion or a sphinx or a phoenix. There's just so much. This world is so big. Most of this takes place at Zodiac Academy. So Caroline Peckham is always on Book Talk and like Instagram stories talking about how this is like smutty adult Harry Potter. So if those terms interest you, pick up this series. It's going to be completed in December of this year with the 7th book. So it's just part of my DNA now. The 6th book I finished in May was American Royals by Catherine McPhee. I actually listened to this on audio because I could get it with my library, and I was trying to read it really fast because, again, this was a Kirsten recommendation for that video. So I actually did buy this book before I did that video because the plot is super interesting. This is a what if young adult kind of drama, and the what if is what if George Washington accepted more of a monarch role in American society after the Revolution. Super interesting. I love American history, but it was like the characters that didn't do it for me in this. I gave it 3 stars. Like, it was an entertaining time, and this is a series, and I do want to know like what happens, But we follow the first daughter, who is actually going to be queen. She's going to be the first queen in this role. They have like changed the law to where it's the first child, not just the first son, who becomes monarch. So we follow her, and she's kind of whiny because she like is happy that she gets to do this, but also she wants to do some other things. We follow her younger sister Samantha, who is like the wild child of their family, and she feels like no one takes her serious, so why should she act serious? And all anyone cares about is her older sister, who's going to be the queen. And Samantha is actually a twin to their brother Jefferson. We don't get a perspective from him, but he's like kind of the same as Samantha. And then we follow Daphne, and she is Jefferson's ex-girlfriend, but she is like a ladder climber in society. She wants fame, she wants royalty. Honestly, she was my favorite character because she was actually like going for something. These other people were just kind of like accepting what they had and complaining about it, and at least Daphne was like going for something. The other perspective we have is Nina, who is Samantha, the younger sister's best friend, and she's a commoner, she's a peasant, but she also kind of has a crush on Jefferson. I'm talking like this book is bad. It's not bad, it just, I didn't love it, is all. The next book I read was Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. This is his like autobiography. This man is so interesting. The life he wants to live is so interesting. Like, he basically lived in a camper for like years, just going to different places where he would film, and he would like stay on Native American reservations, and they would like adopt him as a brother, and then he would go to the Amazon and like become an Amazon native. Then he would like go to Africa and become an African native. He's just such an interesting man, and his family that he grew up with is so interesting too. He talks about his mom and dad a lot, especially in the beginning. What problematic people, but like they created Matthew McConaughey. This was super interesting. I gave it 5 stars. Matthew McConaughey reads the audiobook, so obviously it is a quality production. But if you want to read an interesting biography from an interesting man, give it a go. The next book, and number 8 that I read in May, was Love Her or Lose Her by Tessa Bailey. This is the second book in her Hot and Hammered series. Fix Her Up, the first book, was one of my favorite books that I read last year, and I can't believe it's taken me so long to continue with this series. I gave the second book 5 stars. This follows Dominic and Rosie. Dominic works with their family's construction business, and then Rosie becomes a very close friend of our sisters in the construction business also. And this is like a second chance romance. This is a marriage in trouble romance. Rosie and Dominic are married. They've been married for a while. They were like high school sweethearts. Actually, I think they were like middle school sweethearts. So they got married really young, and then Dominic became a Marine, and he's dealing kind of with some repercussions from his time overseas. And they have let their marriage get very cold. They don't open up a lot with each other, and they don't share their like dreams and desires with each other anymore. And Rosie is like a great cook. Like, she wants to open a restaurant. Food was just my thing for May, apparently. Rosie has kind of found her place in a group of women in their like coastal New Englandy town, and so she's getting a lot of support from them, and she's gonna go for her restaurant, and she leaves Dominic. She's tired of her dead-end job, and she knows that her marriage is not going anywhere, so she leaves, and then they start doing therapy with a very interesting therapist. He's like a hippie, love guru type guy. And in this book, they really are just both working to better their relationship, and it was good. It's also funny, like the series is funny, very steamy. Tessa Bailey writes some quality steam, and 5 stars. Enjoyed it so much. I love all of our characters. I love that we get to spend time with our regular characters from the other books, and I have picked up the 3rd book in the series, and it is just as good so far, so stay tuned next month for that. Okay, this next book that I read, Truth or Beard, what a title, by Penny Reed. This is another that's in Audible Plus. So this whole entire series of like 7 or 8 books is in the Audible Plus catalog. So if you have a membership, they are at your fingertips. And I say that because this was such a 5-star read. This is going to be like a new favorite romance series. This is the Winston Brothers series, and they are bearded mountain men who live in Tennessee. I'm a mountain woman from Kentucky, so I just like feel a kinship with this. This first book follows one of the brothers named Dwayne and his love interest Jessica. Dwayne and Jessica have grown up together, but they've always kind of had like, not a rivalry, but more like a very bantery relationship. Like, they give each other a hard time. That's how I'll say it. They give each other a hard time, and they've done that all through childhood. Jessica has gone to college, and she has come back, and she's teaching at their high school. And Dwayne, he's actually a twin in the Winston family. He and some of the other brothers own like an auto shop. And I really like in this that Dwayne comes out right away, and he's like, Jessica, I've liked you, and we're gonna try to have a relationship now that you're back. And it's them kind of like, they're not enemies, but they kind of have enemy energy. And Dwayne's just trying to talk her into dating him. And it's just like so funny. Jessica definitely has like quirky teacher vibes. And she also wants to travel a lot. So her plan is to just kind of pop into town, save some money, pay off her loans, and then leave and travel the world. So she doesn't really have intentions to stay. And the Winston family is just like super close knit, and she doesn't want to like come between them. There's just so much going on, and it's so good. The series is so good. It's funny, it's steamy, and the like underlying plot in this whole series is that their dad is in this biker gang, and they kind of deal with drama from it through the whole series. It's really good. I've read 2 of the books so far. I can't talk about the second one until next month, but man, these are good. I cannot recommend these enough. Also, lots of good food descriptions again, and it's like cultural, traditional food, and I just like really like it, and it's really good, guys. Okay. Book 10 was The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. I gave this book 4 stars. It was good. This is an historical fiction, and it has a lot of women stuff in it. Women stuff. Yes, that's the term. It's historical fiction, and we have 3 perspectives. One is a present day woman who is having like a rocky marriage, and she travels to London for what was supposed to be her and her husband's 10th anniversary trip, but she has gone alone. And she is like a history major at heart, or she was a history major, and then she's lived like the last 10 years of her life after she got married, just like doing very stable wife things. So she travels to London and finds this like apothecary jar, and then she's looking into the history of it. Her second perspective is the apothecary. And this timeline is in the 1790s. This is super interesting. So she's like an apothecary, and her mother was an apothecary too. And her mother did like good things. She like helped people, and especially women. Like she especially helped women. And then our character that we're following has kind of been hurt by a man. She's been very hurt by a man. So she has built her business helping women poison men. And she's like dealing with a lot of like stress and like health problems that are kind of coming from being evil. And then our third perspective is a like 12-year-old girl who is also in the 1790s, who kind of wants to help the apothecary. And there's a lot of like crime drama in this. And I gave this 4 stars, maybe more like 3.5, 3.75. The story is really cool. Our present day character, I didn't like her. I thought she was like kind of oblivious to other people around her. She was just like really hyper focused on herself, and I don't really like that in characters. And it wasn't even that she wasn't supposed to be an unlikable character. She was just like hyper focused on herself, and she like made this friend at the library in London, and their relationship was just like super one-sided to me. But the story was really super interesting, and I really liked that. Oh, I don't think I like how it ended. I'm kind of trying to remember how it ended. I was kind of underwhelmed by the ending, obviously, because I can't even remember what it was. But now that I'm thinking about it, the ending wasn't like super satisfying to me. But the story was so good. So I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads because the story was just so good. I really like history, and I liked how we did research in this, and I like the crime aspects to the past and the present. That was really good. So I'm gonna stick with my 4 stars, but the characters were just like not my favorites. The last book I have to talk about is this mass market gem. This is The Highwayman by Kerrigan Byrne. This is an historical romance, and we follow 2 characters who were like childhood confidants, like companions. They were in an orphanage together. They had a few years together, and they kind of like fake married each other as younger children. And then some drama happens and they get separated. Our main character, Farah, thinks that her friend, whose name is Dugan, has died in prison. Farah is now in present day. She's like 27, and she's working at Scotland Yard, and she has just assumed the image of a widow. So she can do what she wants in society. She can have a job. She doesn't have to marry anyone if she doesn't want to. She can go around unescorted. She's just like living her life, doing stuff at Scotland Yard, which she finds fulfilling. She kind of wanted to learn some more about her like interesting past because she is an orphan, but she comes from like a wealthy family, but she is pretending not to be that person. Does that make sense? So she's just living her widow life, and then she meets this very notorious, kind of like a vigilante crime lord. He does very bad things, like he murders people, but also like, are they bad people? Did they deserve it? Like, maybe. And he has like become very successful, like he's very wealthy. So they meet when he is being interrogated by her like superior. Then she gets kidnapped. He kidnaps her, but he's like, hey, this is for your own good. Like, I know who you are, and there are people who want to murder you so they can take your inheritance. Because her parents' earlship, I think her dad was an earl. Is it called an earlship? I don't know. It has gone unclaimed because they don't know where Farah is. So there's like a hit out on her because someone wants to like claim this. So he proposes marriage to her and she accepts. She's like, I don't know why I'm so attracted to this bad, dark criminal. And he's like scarred. So obviously you as the reader know that it is her childhood friend who has taken on a different name and a different persona. And he knows who she is, but she doesn't know who he is until later, obviously. But they get married, and she marries him not thinking that he is the same person that she knew. So like super messy, but they're just like so attracted to each other, but he doesn't want to be attracted to her because he thinks that he's going to like tarnish her. He's dealing with a lot of stuff from being in prison for a while. And this book was so good. I mean, like obviously like that plot is just so entertaining, so high stakes, and the relationship is just like so, they're just so attracted to each other, but they want to like kind of put up walls, and then she obviously finds out who he is, and they just have, it's just so good. Okay, this was really good. Also, this is the first in a series by Kerrigan Byrne. I think it's called Victorian Rebels. This is the second book, The Hunter, and we got introduced to the male love interest who's gonna be in here. What can I say? This was really good. I'm kind of wanting to go on like a historical romance binge because like these are just really good. They do the angst, they do like the keeping people apart so well, and I like that in books. Obviously, because I'm reading Zodiac Academy and that series can keep people apart like no other. But I will wrap this up. So thank you all for watching. Those were the 11 books that I read in May. Obviously, some books I got super excited about and some books that were like, okay. But give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Let me know if you've read any of these and what you thought of them. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next one.